Chiefs made it interesting, that's for sure. They trailed the Cleveland Browns by 2 scores in the fourth quarter, but rallied to win 33-29 Sunday at Arrowhead Stadium in the season opener. It was amazing, really. Patrick Mahomes' 75-yard touchdown pass to Tyreek Hill, Chris Jones' excellent play in the second half, and that drop punt that led to the second Mahomes to Kelsey touchdown pass. All led to the stirring victory that we talked about after the game on SportsBeat KC with Sam Mellinger, Vahe Gregorian, Herbie Teope, and Sam McDowell. It's now presented as a SportsBeat KC podcast. On today's show, you'll also hear from Andy Reid and Mahomes. So let's just jump right into it. We've got a heck of a game to talk about. So Chiefs win it 33-29. I had somebody send me an email today saying that when the Browns made it 29-20 in the fourth quarter, Cleveland had an 86.9% chance of winning the game. That the Browns didn't win the game says something about the Browns, but I think it says more about the Chiefs. Melly, let's start with you. What did the Chiefs show us in an opening game victory today?
I thought the Browns panicked, and I feel like the Chiefs made them panic. That game just felt like, and they're not the first team to do it against the Chiefs, but like it just felt like the Browns controlled that game, right up until that fumble. But it felt to me like both sides knew one mistake and it was on. And Chubb's fumble was that one mistake. I know if I have the sequencing right, Chiefs turned that into a field goal. And then the Browns answered the Kareem Hunt touchdown where he jumped into the stands for a second. A lot of middle fingers on that replay, I noticed. But then the next play after the Kareem Hunt touchdown was the Tyreek touchdown. And at that moment, the Chiefs still trailed by 2, right? But at that moment, like, I don't know about you guys, but I'd stopped any sense in any of the files I was working on that the Chiefs were going to lose this game. And they were still down 2 points in the fourth quarter. There's just they do it so fast, and they know it, and whoever they're playing knows it. And I just feel like it puts this additional pressure on the opponent that they've got to play perfectly.
The next snap after the 75-yard Mahomes to Tyreek Hill pass was the Chris Jones sack of Baker Mayfield, which continued the momentum of the game. And of course, that was the possession that ended in the dropped punt. What a play by the Cleveland punter. Andy Reid said he thought the Arrowhead crowd noise may have affected that after the game. We sit up high in the press box. I have no idea if anybody was at the game and are joining us in the comments section. Please let us know if that's what you thought. I just thought it was a big choke job at that point by Cleveland. Vahe, what did you end up writing about?
Well, Blair, to your point on that, I felt like it was a couple things at once. We couldn't quite hear the noise in the press box the way you would outside, but also that sense of the flipping of the script had already started, and it just sort of was like a word I just typed was like cascading down, right? All this stuff just all of a sudden, wham. So I'm just kind of writing about how that really the Chiefs took the Browns' best shot. The Chiefs showed themselves to be vulnerable. The Chiefs won. That has sort of been a theme of the last year. I was looking this number up. I think we all know it. Last year they won 9 games, including in the playoffs, by 6 points or fewer. I think the idea was to get a little more buffer zone this year. But I do believe the Browns are one of the teams that the Chiefs will face again. Certainly they have the potential to be that. And that makes this a pretty nice victory, especially without Tyrann Mathieu and Frank Clark.
Right. So both were on the inactive list before the game. Herbie, tell us a little bit more about the injuries and why Tyrann and Frank Clark didn't play.
I think Andy Reid said it best, and we kind of knew this coming into this game. Mathieu had missed practice since landing on the reserve COVID list on September the 1st. He wasn't activated until Saturday. And then all through the week, the question was, is he the kind of player that can play without practice? I think Steve Spagnuolo said it best on Thursday that, they would be smart about it. And Andy Reid accepted the responsibility and said, hey, that call was on me. I didn't want to take any step back because he has missed time. With Frank Clark, Andy Reid said he tried to give the go during pregame warmups, but they decided not to. And Frank Clark has been dealing with that hamstring issue, I think, since the last week of training camp. And then, we haven't talked to him in a while, so we don't know how he's feeling about that hamstring.
Okay. And did anything come out of the game? Hitchens, I think.
Hitchens had a right elbow injury, but he spent a brief minute or two on the sideline as head athletic trainer Rick Burkholder and one of his staff members looked at that elbow, and they deemed him he was okay to come back in the game. So he was only out for a couple of plays.
Okay. And Sam Melly mentioned it earlier, but let's go into it a little more with a little more detail. The 75-yard pass from Patrick Mahomes to Tyreek Hill that, we've seen it before. It's not Patrick Mahomes has thrown long touchdown passes to Tyreek Hill, but this one came at a moment when it was desperately needed, right? The Chiefs were down 29-20. The Browns had just scored to regain a 2-score lead with 10 minutes to go, a little bit over 10 minutes to go in the game. And take us through the play and what Patrick Mahomes and Tyreek Hill said about it.
Yeah, I think we learned a couple extra things about the play just talking to those guys. The first is that Tyreek Hill was the third read on that play. So Mahomes wants to go to Travis Kelce, and he's not open. He wants to go to Michael Hardman, and he's not open. So then he decides he's got to scramble and create some extra time. And he finds Tyreek Hill. Actually, he does not find Tyreek Hill. He finds Tyreek Hill's hand in the air, and that's it. He said that's all he sees, and he actually told Tyreek Hill that story in the locker room after the game, that I just saw your little hand in the air, to which I think Tyreek just said, come on, man. But that was enough for him to think I can throw this ball. And, I think that play sort of encapsulates what's always been underrated about Tyreek Hill, which is he's really good at adjusting the ball to the ball after it's thrown. And Mahomes said he thinks that's his best quality outside of his speed. I think so too. We talked about that on here. We talked about that in the Tampa Bay game last year. He made a couple of catches that, a lot of people probably don't think he can make because he's generously listed at 5'10". He's probably about 5'8". But he's really good at stopping on a dime. And if a defensive back has already lost a step on him and has to try and run full speed to catch up, he can't do it. It's too late for him to stop along with Tyreek Hill. So, but obviously the key play and probably the signature moment of the game out here.
So there's something about wearing those yellow gloves. The gloves that Tyreek Hill wears that actually have the peace sign embossed on them. So when he was running into the end zone, all he did was hold up his hand like that, and that showed the peace sign. So Tyreek Hill did not get penalized for taunting, and I don't believe he flipped into the end zone, but just did a little twirl, right, little walk. I don't know exactly what it was.
Yeah. Little pirouette.
Really, really fired up though. He said with an extra word in there that I left it out.
Yes. So
Darn fired up.
Yep. But everybody else heard it if it was a live post-game broadcast. So, hey, let's do this. Let's stop and hear from Andy Reid. Here's what Andy Reid had to say in the post-game, some of his early comments after the Chiefs' 33-29 victory.
Listen, what a game. I mean, it was my hat goes off to the Cleveland Browns. I mean, Kevin's done a tremendous job with that football team, and I mean, it was just a heck of a game. Our fans were unbelievable. I mean, we let them out of the cage. I mean, they were wild, and I loved every minute of it. And it made a difference when you can get a punter to drop a ball. That's pretty good by your fans. 10 had a big day with 11 catches for almost 200 yards, and I'm not sure I've seen a defensive lineman take over like Chris Jones did that second half. I mean, he was possessed there and just unreal job he did. And then getting Hilaire the ball more, and the second half I thought was important. So again, Clyde I thought did it. How many yards did he have after contact? I mean, that was he was running hard and aggressive. But Juan had a big play that pass breakup right at the end there. I mean, that was a heck of a job. And then Hughes with the interception. I mean, welcome to Kansas City, right? I mean, that was a beautiful thing for him. Our punt coverage with 88 and 26. I mean, those guys were just all over the place on our coverage team. So, and then Kels had 70, almost 80 yards there, so on 6 catches, but did a nice job. We banked on him on some big plays there, both he and Tyreek. So, all in all, a good day. Spags put together a nice game plan. Came in, made a couple tweaks that's for the second half, and with the run game part of it, wanting to feed 25 and get him going. I mean, and I thought that made a big difference. And then I thought Tobe had a nice package of things in for our special teams. Field position ended up being important for us down the stretch. But that time's yours.
Did you feel like early they went to 4th down and they looked for 2? Did you feel like you were going to get one of those games where they were going to kind of pull out all the stops?
Yeah, they're one of the lead teams in the year with 4th down. So, and we normally do that thing. I chose on the 4th and 2 to kick it, but I just thought at that time we need to do that right there. So, but they've you knew that. I mean, you know how the games are going to be. I mean, they were measuring us against them, and we were kind of doing the same. I mean, this first game, so we knew they were a good football team, and our guys, really pressed through. And
Okay, so there was a lot to like, according to Andy Reid, and there was a lot to like. We will talk about some of those and some of the things not to like about this. But before we do have some audio from Patrick Mahomes. I believe it's on the Tyreek Hill play. So let's hear from Patrick Mahomes.
He's a little dude, but he goes and catches it, and he's pretty fast. So usually good things happen.
Is that like he's always going to adjust to the ball better? Deep ball like that, the DB is?
Yeah, I think it's that he's really good at adjusting to the ball. I mean, he's world class. If not his speed, that's probably the best thing that he does is adjusting when the ball's in the air. And then I think it's kind of that thing where if he gets past you, it's kind of like you're trying to get there with everything you have. So the DB was running as hard as he could because if I threw a good ball, he probably would have thrown it over the top, and he was able to adjust and make a play.
First of all, Herbie, I noticed on that clip the stats for Mahomes, 27 to 36, 337 yards and 3 touchdowns. There are some additional Patrick Mahomes stats for September, are there not?
Oh yeah, he's now 11-0 since becoming the starter for the Chiefs. And I believe he also broke Kurt Warner's record for yards passing for his first 3-4 seasons as a starter. Yeah, Mahomes is special. I mean, what more can you say? I mean, we're up in the press box and he rolled right and threw that bomb to Tyreek Hill. And I just said, wow. That's all I could say was just wow. And I think you heard other people in the press box saying the same thing. But, with Mahomes, you're just never out of the game.
Hey, Blair, I just want to say one thing real quick. We've gotten so used to Mahomes doing Mahomes things that I think Andy Reid listed something like 17 people between jersey numbers and names and did not mention Mahomes in that opening burst. I just thought that was kind of interesting State of the Union.
So maybe they'll get on the same page this week. There are some additional Patrick Mahomes September stats. I believe now in the month of September, in the last 3+ seasons, 35 touchdown passes, no interceptions. Now you just say, look, September wonder, what can he do the rest of the year? Well, he does some pretty good things the rest of the year as well. But what is it about, Sam? What is it about Patrick Mahomes in an Andy Reid offense at the beginning of the season? I can think back of opening games like Jacksonville a couple of years ago, where just that was the Sammy Watkins game, and heck, Mahomes' first game as a regular, as a full-time starter, 4 touchdown passes against the Chargers out at the soccer stadium. So, Melly, what is it about Patrick Mahomes and the Andy Reid offense early in the season?
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned it, so I'm just going to like sort of verbally underline it here, but he's good in any month, and on any planet, and including the one he's from, right? But I also think that I'd be curious, and I don't know this, but I'd be curious to see what Alex Smith's numbers were in September, to see if he was sort of statistically superior in that month compared to the others. Because I think there's a big part of this is just Andy. I mean, that guy is insane with sort of what he does in the offseason. There's always something new. I say this a million times. He never does something just because that's the way he did it last year. And I think there's always, and I don't think we really saw it today, but there's always something, remember the one year they opened in New England and he was sending running backs down the seam on the deep passes. And, there's always some new little thing that the Chiefs do in September that everybody else is sort of copying immediately. What was that route that they did it in Denver, the game that he got hurt actually, where, the receiver comes across the middle and then up the sideline. And that's when they hit him, sort of isolate a linebacker. There's always like these little wrinkles, and you never know what they're going to be. And I think that gives the Chiefs a pretty significant advantage early on as well.
May I say something real quick? There are some new wrinkles, but the one wrinkle I think they need to get rid of when they're inside the 5-yard line is an underhand pass to Mike Remmers, trying to sneak that in. Get rid of that one. Just get rid of that one.
I love the Blake Bell sneak, though. That was awesome.
I counted 3 kind of gimmicky plays for the Chiefs, and we thought with the new offensive line, maybe we had seen the end or at least a great reduction in the gimmick plays. The only one that worked was the Blake Bell in motion and then, lining up under Creed Humphrey to take the snap to go 2 yards for the first down. I don't know how I feel about it, but how about the offensive line in general? That was obviously a big point of conversation going into the season, and certainly this week before the game. Sam McDowell, how do we feel about the offensive line?
I think probably mixed. I thought they had a tough assignment out of the gate, playing against Jadeveon Clowney and Myles Garrett and Malik McDowell. I mean, they had a really tough assignment today for 3 rookies. Orlando Brown we saw got beat a couple of times by the same move we saw him get beat in training camp when Herbie and I are out there watching one-on-ones, and Herbie's doing army crawls to try and get video of the one-on-ones. Orlando Brown got beat on the speed rush, and that's the rush that Myles Garrett beat him on twice today. But Myles Garrett is Myles Garrett. He led the league in sacks last year. I mean, he's a Defensive Player of the Year candidate. He's a really tough assignment, like I said. So I don't know how much you can take away from getting beat by a couple of the guys that the Browns had today. But, I did think there were some bright spots, but, Trey Smith pancaked a guy on Mahomes' run that is a hell of a highlight you need to go watch. But I think it's a mixed game, but week 1 of a new unit playing together, I think it's as good as could be expected.
I do think it matters that they called, like, we can laugh about that Remmers play, but I think it matters that they had 1st and goal from the 3 and decided to do that. I think that's, one thing Therese always used to say, right, is like Andy Reid will never tell you in a press conference what he's thinking, but he'll tell you everything you need to know by what happens, during training camp and the stuff that we can see. And I think that matters. If you don't think you can just run it 3 times, with this new offensive line, I'm going to remember that, just going forward. I think that's a statement of where they think they are right now.
Also interested in, by the same token, the fact of the personnel that they were using. We didn't see a whole lot of Darrell Williams and Jerick McKinnon particularly today. I only saw Jerick McKinnon on the field for 1 snap. I don't know whether that was the only time he was on the field, but I think Darrell Williams ended up with just 1 or 2 carries. They tried to get Clyde Edwards-Helaire going. I think it is a point of emphasis. We heard Eric Bieniemy accidentally say it 2 weeks ago that they were going to run the ball more, and then tried to correct himself and say, oh, well, I meant more effectively. Andy Reid credited Eric Bieniemy with running the ball. sort of implicated that it was his idea to try and get Clyde Edwards-Helaire going. Us in the press box, I hate to sound so cliche. I'd love to watch the tape. But Clyde Edwards-Helaire, I thought, missed a couple of holes. Blair, you and I talked about that on a couple of plays we saw. So I again think that the running game is a bit of a concern that it was not more effective today, particularly with the way the Browns were trying to defend them in the back end.
And it was also – well, Andy brought up a couple different times, Sam, just about like it was really good to see Clyde get going, really good to see, establish. He brought that up like 2 or 3 times to the point where I was like, did I miss something? Like, am I just dead? And I looked at the stats. No, he had 14 carries for 43 yards. They averaged, I think, 3.2 yards per rush as a team. That was interesting to me as well, like kind of the disconnect between, what he said post game and what we saw on the field.
Yeah, I agree with all that you guys are saying. And the number, I think Blair pointed this out. I hadn't thought of it till he said it around halftime. But the longest run the Chiefs had in the first half was Patrick going 5 yards. Yeah. And, 14 for 43 out of your what was the expression Tyler Beatty used the other day, Blair? Your horse bell, your cow, your work cow. But out of him, they need more and better. But to Sam McDowell's point, I mean, you have to call it mixed when you're getting 33 points against this defense. That seems like that's pretty good for an offensive line that's still very much part of all the other things that happened.
Yeah, Brian says that he thought Clyde should have been more of a cutback runner. That's one of the great advantages that we have being as close to the clouds as we are where we sit, is we can see the holes that open up almost as if you're on top of like a drone view of the stadium from where we sit.
Blair, you were the ever optimist, finding a silver lining in the view that we have of the field. That is so your personality to pull out a positive from the view that we're sitting and watching.
Barbara said the tight end sneak was new. Absolutely. Had not seen that. That was interesting.
I wonder if there's going to be a pass at some point, because you can't have that tight end sneak. Like the next time Blake Bell comes under center, everyone's going to be expecting the sneak, right? So I'm wondering if there's more to that package than the play we saw today.
Paul asked us to rate the performance of the lines. We talked about the offensive line. How about the defensive line? This is a defense that gave up 318 yards in the first half, 457 for the game. Hey, it's Blair. We have a special subscription offer for SportsBeat KC listeners, unlimited digital access to the Kansas City Star's award-winning sports coverage. Sign up now for 1 year of Sports Pass for access to all the sports news, features, and columns presented on the kansascity.com site, and it's only $30. That's a 40% savings off our regular rate. Your subscription will automatically renew after the initial term at $50 unless you tell us to cancel. Your subscription helps support the sports coverage of kansascity.com and the Kansas City Star, and that support has never been more important. Please visit kansascity.com/SportsBeatKC offer to get this special offer. And as always, thanks for listening. And we're back.
Okay.
All right, Herbie, what about the defensive front of this? What kind of game do these guys have?
I will tell you this, because I know like you and I, we sit next to each other in the press box, and we both noticed in the first half, they were getting hardly any pressure on the ground. And that's how Baker Mayfield was able to have his good game. I think their first 2 drives, 150 yards. They were able to convert 2 fourth downs on consecutive drives, and a lot of that had to do with their ability to command the front line and in the trenches. And the Browns have a good offensive line. They returned 11 of their starters on offense. So I mean, they had that chemistry, they had that foundation. But kind of like the offensive line, I'm going to use the word that Sam said. It's a mixed bag, because that first half it didn't really do anything to really impress me. But then Chris Jones emerged in that second half and took over. So they had some good and they had some bad. And obviously, they played without Frank Clark. But yeah, it was kind of like what are they doing out there? Because they looked lost in that first half.
Yep. Hey, Sam McDowell, Andrew asks, how much better can this defense be with Tyrann Mathieu, Frank Clark, and Willie Gay? I think considerably better. I think of those three, we talked about it. Tyrann Mathieu, I think, would have made a big difference tonight.
Yeah, I thought Tyrann Mathieu and Willie Gay specifically, because when we looked at the halftime stats, I mean, it was the running backs and the tight ends who were tearing them up. Even in the passing game, the running backs were having big days just at halftime. And the wide receiver, other than Schwartz, Jarvis Landry got held to one catch in that first half, and when the Browns had 9.9 yards per play. So I thought Willie Gay, I mean, that's the biggest improvement that we saw him make at training camp, was how he was doing in coverage. And that's the piece I thought they really missed today. Tyrann Mathieu, I mean, that's self-explanatory. I mean, we know what he can do, but I just think it's under the radar, the fact that they're missing Willie Gay today. I think he would have done wonders for their pass defense.
You guys agree that Willie Gay's the guy? I know he only played the one preseason game, but he looked fast. He looked ready to go, and with the turf toe, he's gone for at least the next couple of weeks. He's the guy I really want to see play on this defense. But we did get to see Nick Bolton and Herbie. Is that right? Did Nick Bolton lead the team in tackles tonight?
Yeah, he tied up for the most tackles with 2 other players to 7 tackles. He also had that tackle for a loss. We'll probably talk to him Wednesday, though. We'll get his reaction on how he felt, how he played. And I know, like, we asked Chris Jones after the game how his thoughts on how Bolton played, and he said, "Hey, he was flying around." So Bolton did have a good game.
Okay. Hey, I know we're having some connection problems, so we'll wrap it up here. I really appreciate everybody sticking with us and your questions and comments. A lot of great ones tonight. So thank you very much for that. Let's go with some final thoughts. We'll start with Vahe. Anything you see tonight that they should that worries you about this team's, I don't know, place in the AFC or next week at Baltimore?
Excuse me.
I know I'm a little verklempt myself, Vahe.
Yeah, I'm a little verklempt. No, I just think we need to remember that they've got it's a little thorny in the early going with their schedule. They had some X factors today with the defense that was a little rudderless without Tyrann at first, and obviously missing Frank and probably Willie Gay too, and an offensive line playing this first game. I think that there are going to be some moments that I think we're going to see a loss or two here early. I still think we will. But I think that when you have a game like this where you demonstrably got better in the second half after a pretty dire first half, and you made the other team feel like it's inevitable you're going to win, I think that's a pretty good testimony to where this team is.
What do you think, Melly?
Yeah, I mean, I think that this team can be beaten and not fluky beaten, can just be beaten. But I think, the Browns are a team that can do that. And we sure saw a lot of that today. But I think it also just shows how hard it is to beat this team. You have to do everything right, and you have to keep doing everything right. And you have to get a little bit lucky too. And it's just this group, they must be the most infuriating team to play against, because of that. And it's just, that one false step and Mahomes is throwing deep to Tyreek, and it's going to be 14 seconds later, and he's like literally walking into the end zone. It just must be absolutely infuriating to play this team. They are flawed enough, like all NFL teams are. They'll lose, but God, it's going to take a hell of an effort to beat them down. I think we can see that.
Yeah, I thought for 3.5 quarters we were looking at what would it have been the first back-to-back losses in Mahomes' career if they had lost today. I can't remember, but might have been. Look, so many questions. We couldn't get to all of them. We'll try to do that on Thursday when we come back at you 9:30 a.m. on Thursday for our next SportsBeat Live Talking Chiefs with you. We also talk Royals, 10 a.m. on Tuesday. Join us for that as well. So for Herbie, Vahe, Sam McDowell, Sam Mellinger, and our producer, Beth Welsh. Thanks for joining us, and we'll talk again on Thursday. That'll do it for today. Thanks to our SportsBeat KC production staff of Beth Welsh, Monty Davis, Jeff Rosen, Chris Fickett, and Savannah Smith. Tip of the cap to Herbie Teope, Sam McDowell, Vahe Gregorian, and Sam Mellinger for Talking Chiefs. Links to stories about the Chiefs' victory over the Browns on Sunday can be found in the show notes and on kansascity.com. Hey, got another deal for you. You can subscribe to Sports Pass for 99 cents a month. That's right, 99 pennies a month. Sports Pass is the online version of the Star Sports section. You get all the stories that appear in the print editions of the Star, plus additional stories that appear only on the website. And of course, they're posted first on kansascity.com. After 3 months, it auto-renews at $5.99 a month unless you cancel. How do you get it? You go to kansascity.com/sportspass2020. That's kansascity.com/sportspass2020. But I got to tell you, I'm burying the lead here. The real news is the Star's new e-edition. It's a replica of the printed newspaper on your screen that comes with your digital subscription. And now there's an updated sports section produced separately that goes along with it. When you open the e-edition, there's a box in the upper right-hand corner. You click on that and you can access a sports page that includes all the late afternoon and evening news. Today's section is 35 pages full of Chiefs and NFL coverage, as well as the Royals, Major League Baseball, U.S. Open tennis, everything. It's incredible. Listen, however you get the Star, I want to thank you because you're supporting the best sports and news coverage in Kansas City and helping us produce programs like SportsBeat KC. Thanks for listening, and we'll be back on Tuesday with another episode.